Hello, this is Valerie Aiello, and you're listening to Idea Diary. Thanks for coming back to my office and hanging out. So today I decided to listen to the worst album ever made, apparently. The Shaggs Philosophy of the World, which was recorded in 1969. It has a huge backstory. I guess maybe I've kind of known somewhere along the way of watching weird YouTube videos and listening to weird music. I guess this one video came up by Afro Media. I'll link it in the description of the show, but they did a video about outsider music. So it's kind of like a little short music educational video that whenever it comes in my feed, sometimes you click on them, sometimes you don't, but I'm definitely a fan of outsider music. So I clicked fast. They were talking about the Shaggs and these three girls that I guess I never fully knew the full story about them. And it's an insane kind of story because these three girls that were in this girl rock band group in the late 60s never wanted to play music, never listened to music, and their father made them practice all day long, pulled them out of school, made them kind of sheltered, and just didn't even teach them how to play the instruments, just bought them instruments, put them basically in a basement to practice in for days and days and days, until one day he decided they were good enough to make an album and took them to a recording studio. The engineer at the recording studio told the father they're not ready to record an album yet, and the father said do it anyway, paid the money to have the record made, and I guess they just performed all the songs for the album in one day. So I think what the engineer said was that they did one song and they did a take, and he asked the father if he wanted to keep trying again to make sure they got the best take, and the father was just like, no, it's great, let's move on. The father didn't know how to play music. When the father was young, the father went to a fortune teller who told him that he would marry a strawberry blonde woman, that they would have two sons, then his own mother would die, and then they would have girls. And three of those girls would become the greatest girl group in America, and it was his fate. So when he ended up marrying this woman, and they had two sons, and then they had more girls, I guess 4 girls at least. I guess the girls that were old enough to play music, he took them out of school, gave them instruments, and just told them to start making music. And just with zero direction, I'm not sure exactly maybe if the girls got to watch TV or maybe they heard a song on the radio from here or there, but the impression I got is he was very strict and he kept them sheltered. He just wanted them to be in a band. So he got the record made. That was on June 15th, 1969. And I guess before that moment, before they made the record, they had already been practicing daily for 5 years. And you'd have to hear the album to know how, technically bad it is, but the innocence and the idea that you could just be in a rock band and define what that means, just being in a room with your sisters and not really knowing anything above that of whatever maybe was in your head or what you thought you would like. And they would write some songs about their cat and Halloween. And from their photos, they look to be, teenagers, maybe 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. I'm not sure exactly on their ages, but they're definitely young teenage girls. When I listened to the full album, I had 2 tracks that, definitely stood out to me as actually pretty cool, which was the Halloween track. It's Halloween. And then one track closer to the end of the album called What Should I Do? Definitely was actually good. If somebody were to play that song for me, I would think it was cool. Obviously, I would think you should tune your instruments or you should practice it up, but I definitely wouldn't hear that song and think, that's a pile of crap. The girls had something. They just had no desire to be in a band. They didn't want to practice. When they went to record the album, the engineer said the girls just looked completely miserable. The girls said they were miserable. And the father bought 1,000 copies of the vinyls, apparently, and only 100 survived, and 900 were lost. So nobody knows where those are. However, after they made the record, the father was determined that they would start playing shows. His dream was for the girls to be on the Ed Sullivan Show, but the girls had zero desire to do anything. So he ended up, I guess, maybe renting a dance hall and selling tickets. And he made all these rules for the show. And he basically got them like a residency night. So I don't know how many shows they actually played. But all the kids that would go to the shows would just go to make fun of the girls and tell them how awful they are. And I guess it was just an overall embarrassing experience. And the father ended up dying 5 years, I guess, after the album was released. So in the 70s, 1975, 74, somewhere on there, I guess. The day that he died, they disbanded the band. The band was no more. They never wanted to play music again. So I was trying to find some interviews with the girls, and there were some with the BBC, and looks like one of the girls from the Shaggs still plays music in some way. There was a record label, I guess, by a band called NRBQ. Somehow, some way or another, I guess that band had a record label, and they went and found the girls because they heard the music and asked the girls if they could release the album. And they said yes, because they didn't care about the album and they didn't think anyone else would. But it happened to be when this record label got the original tracks, made an album, and released it. Everyone loved it. And it, just in that Frank Zappa, Tiny Tim, the kind of crazy music way. Kurt Cobain said it was one of his favorite albums of all time, and Rolling Stone Music talked about it. And it was just seemed to be one of those things that, I don't know, I always think about, was it fate for the girls to make this album, or did the dad just manifest destiny and kind of make it happen? And with the strong belief that he had inside, it ended up happening. They did become famous. I mean, obviously not famous in a way that normal people know who they are, but famous in an underground music scene, cult way, which is probably a better famous to be if you think about fame. Anyway, it's just a rabbit hole to go down. I'll leave the links to the full album of the Shaggs and an interview with the BBC, which was just kind of a radio interview, podcast style, and anything else interesting that I kind of find, so that you can kind of start your rabbit hole somewhere if you just want something interesting to look at today. This is it. So I just thought it was a really kind of dark, weird story that kind of goes along with the idea of what's kind of always on my mind, which is fate versus destiny, and if you can manifest your own destiny, and just kind of believing in something so much that it becomes a reality in some bizarre way. It was just kind of cool. I love outsider music. If you want to know my all-time favorite outsider music artist, it is Jan Terry. She is the best of all time. And you should also check out her music. That's a totally different rabbit hole. You could spend a few hours watching all her music videos. And I believe she had a documentary that was supposed to come out in 2020. I'm not sure if it did. She's definitely around, and she's definitely awesome. Check it out. Let me know what you think. And you can write me at valerieaiello.com on whatever platform you decide to write me at. I will get back to you eventually. I guess that's the show. Thanks for watching, and I still don't know how to end the show, so I'm just going to play the music.